Hello and welcome to the after party. Your hosts are Jared George and Jason Köhne. The honors roll call highlights and celebrates. Oh, I have some feedback over here on my end. Back to the honors roll call. It highlights and celebrates those who have conscientiously committed to monthly gifts in my work for White Wellbeing, and appearing on the All Stars portion of that honors roll call are Roy Danton and Lindbergh's Baby, Joseph and Final Blossom, White Healing and Jay, Shaxor and Last Paleocon, and finally Going Free. And for those remaining on the honors roll call, we have a Michigan Wave, Happy Cat, Dean, Crocus, Cockubek, Scott, King Petrus, Brad, Jim, Ohesian Outlaw, and Goofy Grape. Your support enables me to do what I'm doing for White Wellbeing. Folks, if you are not one of them, be sure to thank them. As for the crown winner of last week, the crown goes to Zero Talent for gifting a total of $5. Congratulations and thank you, my dear friend, here week after week. Now, Zero Talent was the only financial gifter last week, so there is no second place. Thank you very much, Zero Talent. Financially gift on Entropy at 15%, and I will have that up in just a moment, where you can also watch the stream, ask and vote on questions. And you can also financially gift on Cash App. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on the after party. Today, a rising star, Harry, from the TrUK Show is on tap. Welcome, Harry. Please introduce yourself to our esteemed community. Tell them where they can find you, and then Mr. George will take us into the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure. Yeah, I'm the TrUK Show. Do a YouTube channel. Every couple of weeks, I try and put out a new video on a range of topics. I try and mainly focus on cultural topics and stuff that YouTube probably will allow me to get away with. Obviously, I'd like to get into more complicated events, but YouTube and the crushing censorship is making it harder. But I used to do live streams as well, but it's just too hard when you're trying to speak in an ideological prison. So I think it's much easier for me to make videos and be able to water them down so they're YouTube friendly.
Welcome, Harry. It's good to have you on. And I'm on a new machine here, so I'm getting a little used to things. I'm a little zoomed into the camera. Maybe I'll go out and come back in. I want to be more even with you guys. But anyway, that's a minor thing. We will get into a lot. Harry has some great videos, as you just mentioned. I really like the most recent one that's on your channel right now, Scope. And we're going to get into a lot of the ramifications of what you talk about in those videos. But we'll start with just the basic, how you got into all of this. How did you become white positive, red pilled, whatever you want to call it, and we'll take it from there.
Well, thank you. It's great to be on stream with you too, Jared. And thank you for your kind words on my videos. But yeah, getting into politics, I think I was 15 years old. I heard Nigel Farage speaking. It was coming up to the 2015 general election. I think I was around 15 coming into 16 years old at the time. I just remember hearing this guy speak, and everyone around me was hating him. And even naturally, subconsciously, I knew that it was like the 2 minutes of hate from 1984. I knew everyone was just screaming at him for no reason. And I realized this guy was speaking sense in some way. I knew I was a nationalist right from the get-go. And I always had this innate feeling back to my race, my heritage, of what this country was and what it was built upon, the foundations it was built upon. And I even remember saying to this guy on the bus, I was really aware, particularly of the anti-white hatred that we find ourselves living in today, the world which really surrounds itself around anti-white hatred. I remember telling a guy on the bus, he's a super leftist, super cuck. And I remember telling to him that white people were the most oppressed people in the West at the time. And him laughing at me, everyone else laughing at me. And well, they're not laughing anymore now that you have Cambridge University professors specifically saying that, I can't remember what she said exactly, but white lives don't matter. That's what she said. And obviously, gradually I just became more and more aware of what was happening. And here we are now.
So yeah, specifically you were having, this is interesting because it speaks to what in Going Free we call blindsight. So you had some sort of natural inclination to care about yourself as a part of our people, rather than yourself as just this independent individual, this radical individualism, this cog in the machine, where you're just a worker, a producer and consumer of some capitalist society. You saw yourself as part of a people, and you could see that something wasn't quite right. And we talk about this, and Harry, it says a lot about your really your talents, your latent abilities, and it does for everybody who has blindsight. You know who you are. I mean, Nathan, for example, in the community, is somebody who had great blindsight coming in, and there have been others, quite a few folks who are able to see something is not quite right, and they identify some of those things, and that's what ultimately the anti-whiteism is, just like this grading on what they can feel and sense in some degree is not quite right, and that's why they end up heading down this path. So there are different degrees of that, just so everybody knows. I mean, you can have a little bit of blindsight, a lot of blindsight, and then you end up going free, and it all makes perfect sense. But you don't have to have blindsight, and I'll toss this right back. I mean, you could not, you don't have to have been as gifted. For example, as Harry was just talking about with himself there, that he saw this and it was immediately grotesque on some ideological, physical, emotional way when he saw this anti-whiteism. And but you don't have to have that. You can be just one of our vague brothers and sisters and have completely bamboozled by the anti-whites, have been in their system, believing everything they had to say. Why would you necessarily think that anything else was the case? And you can be redeemed. You can come to Going Free, and you can get on the right path with the rest of us. But I see Mr. George is back. Harry, did you have anything you wanted to say to that, the point I just made?
Yeah, no, definitely. I remember, I think it was also caused mainly by not what our side was doing, but mainly what the other side was doing. I remember especially what really brought my my opinions to fruition, made me speak out the way I do now, was I think it was definitely Brexit, and it was definitely the Trump elections, especially cancel culture. And this is what I find with the younger generation now, why there's more and more base people coming out, there's more and more youngsters getting involved in the game, is because there's no future. I mean, we grew up in a time of cancel culture where if you have any different opinion to the anti-white narrative that's going on now, you get ostracized completely from friends, people try and cancel you. So this is the only road to go down, is speaking out.
So actually, to Jason's point, if you guys want to listen to Tap from a couple weeks ago, Sarah Dye, if you didn't catch that, she's a perfect example of someone doing great work, but was totally in the anti-white matrix, as she explains. Harry, you probably were already starting to answer this question with what you were just saying, but before we go on, I'm curious, anything more you'd like to add about what particularly drew you to YouTube and making videos and participating in that way? Because a lot of people in our community are doing a lot, and we like to remind people, like, we all need to participate. The few of us who, for whatever reason, have the inclination to get up and show our faces and be on YouTube, that's just one aspect. And we really like to hit home with this idea that we all have to own it. We all participate. Everyone has a part to play. But what was it about making commentary and videos on YouTube that drew you?
It was mainly being at uni. It was mainly growing up through school. It was just ideas going unchallenged. And I'd always had this critical analysis. I'd always be critically thinking, oh, why has someone done that? Lots of people focus on what's happening. But I always like to say, an ethos I always go by is nothing happens by accident. Everything happens for a reason. If you go down the rabbit hole of what their philosophy or what their thinking was behind it, there's always a deeper motive. So when I was aware of lots of what was going on, I was saying, oh, who's done that? Why would they want to do that? And basically just going insane at uni. You're not able to have a different opinion. You're not able to basically speak out. Otherwise, that's it. Hate crime, police round your house, the mob after you. So eventually it was like, I've had enough.
Well, just really quick, Harry. So you were in your youth prior to university, you didn't really come into contact with this sort of anti-whiteism. You were just living your life. Maybe you saw it a little bit here or there, but it wasn't so grotesque that you really felt like, wow, we're really under attack. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think when you're growing up, or you're not really, I think I definitely had a certain naivety. I was definitely more of a civ nat. And then you go into the real world, and then you realize how things really work. So I think when you're young, you can kind of ignore it. You're coming up, and then you're just surrounded by these entertaining distractions. And then when you actually get in the thick of it, you actually end up in these Marxist institutions. You really feel the wrath of the globalist agenda.
Yeah. Now, speaking of that, we have a big question that'll you take as much time as you need with it, and we'll kind of go off on tributaries. I mentioned your video scope, and I was really impressed with it, and it does indeed have a great scope. And we were just talking about Sarah Dye on a couple weeks ago, who was in the anti-white matrix. You did a really good job in that scope video. One of the reasons I loved it, of briefly, but still powerfully, kind of giving this lay of the land of how all kinds of things, even more subtle ways of life and assumptions just in the air, everything, the way people have to make choices about jobs and career and family and just their whole life path, everyone is enmeshed in the West in this anti-white matrix. So if you could just take a few minutes to kind of give us the overview of what that looks like, all the different elements and how they play together, like all the different parts of the net that trap us.
Sure. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say that. But yeah, so I tend to focus mainly on consumerism. I think that's one of the biggest fails which has come upon our people. I really feel that that's the main factor driving a lot of what's happening, mainly particularly because what they want is they don't want a strong collective. They don't want a strong European white collective, whatever you want to call it. Because if that were to happen, I think you'd have people feeling more safe and secure in what they were able to say. And because we've been individualized with consumerism, we're not really able to have this strong collective because everyone's got their own individual interests and hobbies. People don't want to associate with themselves and think, oh, I think you're muted, by the way. All right, sorry, I saw your mouth.
Sometimes I do that on the show. I'm not really saying anything. I'm just going right.
Yeah.
And I'm just nodding in agreement.
Yeah, cool.
Go on.
I saw your, yeah.
I wasn't saying anything. Sometimes to see my mouth move with just a right. It's just a habit of mine.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I just saw your mouth moving, and then I was like, oh, he's saying something. But yeah, so with consumerism, you find I talked about this in another video as well. Maybe we'll talk about that later as well. But we've been completely umbrellaed with all these lotus flowers, these entertaining distractions. And what this serves a purpose is it naturally individualizes people because there's no need for anyone to have a collective. And we've been through technology as well, things like social media. The youth love that. All people's lives revolve around now is like ratings, how social they are, how many friends they have, how well traveled they are, things like this. And people really live in the moment. They don't really prepare for the future. And we see with this rental market as well, within the Western world, particularly now in the UK, I think the average salary is around £26,000, yet the average house price is around, I think it's like 200, just over £200,000. So I always thought, why is this happening? Why are they pushing us towards a rental market? And I say one of the biggest things is the destruction of the family. I say that if you can't afford to have a family, more and more people are going to be incentivized to becoming more individualized, focusing around hyper-consumerism as opposed to longevity, how you're going to be when you're 50, 60 years old, when you've watched enough movies, you've been to enough concerts. I mean, when you're looking around, it's Christmas Day and there's no family around you. So I think that we really, I'm not sure about you guys, but I feel just the aesthetic of everything. Megacorp, you go into a shopping mall in one place in the UK and then you go to another place, it's exactly the same. Everyone's life has been molded before they're even able to have a difference of opinion. And we've seen the plummet of IQ in the West, the average plummet of the IQ. I really think what we're going towards is a lower IQ slave consumer society. in which there's no one who's able to critically analyze why things are happening. And I think, especially in scope, I say the biggest trouble the scope we face is how people are just oblivious to this. They just think this is normal. And no one has critically taken a step back and analyzed, wow, all I'm doing all day is watching TV and scrolling through my phone. And I'm doing it tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. And before you know it, I'm 65. I still haven't even got my pension yet. And the youth especially don't realize what's going on. Because they've never worked a day in their life. And before you know it, they're 60K in debt. They're out of uni. They don't get as good a job as they could have done. And then that's it. Their life is set out and molded till 65. If you speak out against the crimes that are going on, you're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your way of life.
Yeah, actually, let's follow up on that. A question we had a little further down the list, but you mentioned it. You speak out against a lot of kids going to university. So can you expand on that a little bit more? I mean, I think some of us know the obvious, but it's worth mentioning. We haven't talked too much about that topic on this show, I think. So it's worth exploring a little bit.
For sure. Well, yeah, it's the obvious point, I think, is that obviously they're Marxist brainwashing institutions. Even if you do a non-political course, you're always maybe it's a bit different in America, but in the UK you have to do probably quite similar. Yeah. If anything, from what I saw when I was younger, I think America's actually a bit worse. So maybe we're a bit luckier in the UK. But in the UK, we have to do these optional modules. Some of them, I think one of the ones I was doing was queer domesticies or something like that. Not really sure what that really had to do with politics, but I had to learn about that anyway. Feminism. I made one of my feminist tutors cry once by accident, and I was only at 2-3% power level. I think I accidentally implicitly fat shamed in what I was saying, and I could see the tears rolling down her eyes, the crocodile tears. But there's no difference of opinion allowed. There's no debate. I think I used a Daily Mail article saying that red meat causes cancer or something like that in one of the essays I was citing. And they just said in the feedback, is that a reliable source? Yet The Guardian and other Marxist newspapers are allowed to be used as a source. I even saw this girl I used to know, and she shared something about white privilege and veganism, the link between white supremacy and veganism. That was it. It's just all these ridiculous points. And this is supposed to be serious academia. You're trying to tell me about the link between veganism and white supremacy. But for me, I don't mean to ramble on too long, but for me, the most mental thing isn't actually what they're teaching you. It's things like the drug culture, the promiscuity, the hypersexualization of the youth. I know girls who are 20 years old with a body count of over 60. I know girls who are going on 7-day drug benders. I've seen girls, crying after all the drugs are run out. I've just seen the absolute worst of the debasement, the debauchery of our society now.
And you mentioned in your videos that you think, even though these are quote unquote forbidden fruits and you're not supposed to do it, that a lot of people in the powers that be and the whole social way that college is structured, I saw some of the same, actually wants this. It encourages this.
For sure. I see. Don't tell me Boris Johnson tomorrow could be rounding up the troops and then going to what intel they know are people that are doing drugs. You have music videos in the UK. There's a song called Ways by Young Ads, Skepta and Chip. So 3 supreme gentlemen, 3 intellectuals from probably from South London. And one of them was self-professing to dealing heroin and shooting witnesses in cases. And they can just roll back and they can just go, oh, it's all a joke. It's all just, we'll just bind into the scene just to create this image and be cool and make sales. But in reality, this is what they're doing. And someone like Boris Johnson tomorrow could round up all these drug dealers. They know who they are, and they could get rid of them. They could throw them in jail, but it's not happening. Why are drugs so easily promoted in mainstream culture? You had Channel 4 a couple of months ago with a white kid overdosing on ketamine, as this is normal family life. So they implant the problems into culture within music, TV, art, Hollywood movies, and then that replicates itself into normal life because people think that's normal. And my friends told me he goes to Bristol, which is one of the worst unis for drug culture in the UK, and he's seen his mate doing ketamine, which is a horse tranquilizer, at like 3 p.m. middle of the day on a weekday, and it's just normal. No one ever takes a step back and says, this is wrong.
Yeah, that's insane. But I don't even have anything to say to that right now. While we're on the subject of university, we'll also get to something else we wanted to talk about. You mentioned in another video, this was really amusing. Anyone go watch this if you haven't already, the dissertation video, how there were thousands of available public dissertations. You sampled just 7. And if I remember correctly, it was 4 non-white girls and 3 white girls. These are their college dissertations, what earned them their degree. Certainly some of them are partially or wholly subsidized by taxpayer money to go to university with different scholarships and grants. As you mentioned, it works the same way here in the United States. And tell us a little about, first of all, what just the subject of some of these papers that you saw.
Yeah, I mean, this is fair play to the ladies involved. Really intellectual stuff. We had something like OnlyFans talking, saying about OnlyFans and studying that as if that was a valid topic.
Sex work and OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Yep. This is a dissertation to get a degree.
Exactly. It's
something about Beyonce. You said something about a girl wrote something about Beyonce. The Beyonce documentary and racism was her subject, right?
I think there was like something like probably something on British colonialism, something like that. The evils of Britain, and I can't remember one of them. I think it was skin whitening in Filipino skincare, something like that. Yep. And obviously, we as a society, we've greatly benefited from the work of these young ladies.
Yeah, I mean, you could get some new insight on Chaucer, or you could talk about skin lightening from the Filipino community. You know, I was kind of tossed a coin. It was either one. I was passionate about both, and I coin landed on Filipino skin whitening.
But what was in this video? What was interesting is that the 4 non-white girls collectivized around their race. What they all have in common is they're all over socialized, and it was coined by maybe I can't say who he is, but he released a manifesto that I found, which was very, very interesting. Some of the points in which he spoke in it, and he talks about over socialization. I think it's on around page 27. What he talks about was how the people that are most vocal about social justice are not people from underprivileged stratas, but the most privileged stratas of society. And this is what we find in a lot of these white college girls today, is that they cannot collectivize around their race because to do so would be racist. So they have to collectivize about another aspect of them, which is oppressed, like, for example, being a female or being transgender or something like that. So, what I said was, I really believe that you've seen, particularly in the white hemisphere, is that loads of white people, because they cannot collectivize around their race, are moving to things like the LGBT agenda or that community. They're moving towards transgenderism because that is the only way in which they can be oppressed, but they can also have a collective. You can't have a collective if you're white now.
Yeah, I mean, variety is a fundamental principle of life. And like anything, if you suppress it, it's just going to pop back up in a more negative form. We wanted to talk about that. Did you have anything more to say about how these lanes are delineated for people where non-whites can collectivize around their race, but whites have to do this other thing, and how that's kind of kept people in these mental chains as well?
For sure. I think you have movements like Black Lives Matter, which are obviously divide and conquer organizations. They're designed to skew the pot. I don't think they really expected the backlash from the white community that they got. I think they're quite naive to that. But I think they purposely plant these philosophies, for example, of white privilege, or that black people are oppressed in Western nations, or immigrants are oppressed. And what you find is these, as you said, they're delineated. They purposely go down these routes They fall for it hook, line, and sinker. And then the white people are left, well, what's going on here? And I think another interesting point about white people not being able to collectivize and the routes in which white people find themselves going down is football. So, for example, young men now in the UK get pushed down the football route. They work from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, slave their life away. And then the one thing that keeps them going is football. That's where they can collectivize as a tribe without being called racist into all their different firms. And they can feel as if they're a collective. And you even find with lots of West Ham fans, before it got corporatized, before they moved stadiums to the bigger Olympic Stadium, or maybe that was Tottenham, but West Ham moved into a very much bigger stadium, and they lost their local field. They lost their Upton Park, their small town, and loads of fans felt abandoned by that. And I think what the coronavirus now has really shown is that now football's gone. Now you can't go to the stands. Now you can't be with your mates drinking beer in your big groups, feeling like it's strong in your collective. Now people are starting to realize, oh, something's a bit funny in the world. And this amalgamated with all the anti-white hatred going on has been very great for us.
Yeah, we talked about that, Jason. I know you were big on that, where we all know there's more than meets the eye with what's going on. I mean, no one here is believing the WHO thing and Bill Gates, well, you should listen to YouTube. They're always right. And we should give our disclaimer, right? Give our disclaimer. Hello to the Poseidon mug. But at the same time, I think sometimes guys on our side, and this helps with mass communication, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this too. I know you have to keep messages very simple, and I struggle with this because I understand that, and I'm a communicator. I'm up here doing this, but Jason and I are also, we're part of a community here of people who we want to be a vanguard, and we expect excellence of one another, of each other. That higher standards have to come back. So we want people to understand, as we learn and understand ourselves and round out our perspectives, that, yeah, undeniably, we don't have to tell you this, there's entities and people out there making choices to harm us to our detriment. It's not all just this one thing, like this central world headquarters in the core of the earth. There's different power structures vying for getting their leg up. It's messy. There's certain things about this COVID situation, like what you just said, that are taking away some of these distractions. You call them lotus flowers in your video because you mentioned this myth with Odysseus and people getting stuck on an island. They would eat the lotus flower and they wouldn't care about anything else. So you use the lotus flower as a stand-in for all the drugs and the Netflix and the meaningless life, just everything to distract you from what's going on. COVID has taken away a lot of these, as you say, lotus flowers. There's a tremendous opportunity for us here, even simple ways too. Like we've spoken to moms. We spoke to Lacey Lynn early on when this whole thing hit about homeschooling. And there's a lot of moms who are now saying, maybe I don't want to go back to work. Maybe I like spending more of this time with my family. So there's a lot of opportunity for us here too. You can't get into this mindset every day. It's going to eat away at you. It's going to kill your soul, that everything in the world is out to get you. And it's all locked up already. It's all done. That, it's not even worth it because I know it seems hopeless sometimes and we're up against a seemingly impossible task, but you talk a lot about this in your videos too. So I'll hand it over to you because there's a lot there.
For sure. I think it works definitely in our favor what's been going on with the coronavirus. I remember when it first all started happening in the UK, when we were put into lockdown, when you would go on our government designated walk, or you go for a run or something like that, you see all these families, the sun will be shining, you see all these families out, the community be out together, people be in the park, socially distancing, so be it. But still, people realized that, wow, it's boring just staying in all day and watching Netflix and going on my phone and not seeing the outside world. And I think really being forced for people to be confined within the limits of their own house made them realize what we've really missed as a community. I think we've really been digitalized as well. I've got a new video coming out in the coming days called Digital Tyranny, and it's basically talking about how everything that we now live by and every hobby that we have has been made digitalized. So things like Netflix, you got social media, so you don't actually have to go out and see anyone. And I've been really thinking that perhaps this is the age we move into, the digital age. We've got everything we need at home, and especially within the Western world, we have all these. We used to have all these primary and secondary sector jobs, things like mining. We had a great wool and cotton industry here, and we moved it all offshore for globalist profits, for capitalist, extensive capitalist profits. And we've really lost what it means to be a community. Oh, he's the bricklayer, he's the guy that spins the wool, he's this, and everyone used to know each other. But we don't have that anymore. People don't even look at each other in the eye. And again, with the lotus flowers, these are all entertaining distractions. I like to define them as someone can just instantly just take it away from you. It's not something you're producing yourself. So people who are invested too much in their Instagram, well, Instagram could take down Instagram tomorrow. What would your life be? Nothing. Like, you'd be a joke. So
exactly, you need the deeper meaning behind it, which is something that you talk about a lot. More to talk about there, but before we go on, because I know we're getting into some other territory here, just a follow-up question that builds on what we were talking about with the college girls, their theses, and we already discussed these lanes that you're put into. But you say at one point that the white girls can't get into race, and they're denying this metaphysical reality. So I want to hear your thoughts on what metaphysical reality of race is.
Everything comes down to your race. Everything comes down to your biology, your genetics. And what the Marxists have been trying to do for several decades now, if not centuries, we don't know how far this goes back, their globalist plot, but it's reality. And they've conjured this word racist, racism. And what that's done is it's scared people. It's perfectly natural for white people to just want to be with white people. There's nothing wrong with that. People think that it's hatred that you don't want to be with anyone. It's not that. I don't have hate for you. It's just love for your own people. And it's not just that you're denied that. They're explicitly bringing in people for the destruction of our own. It's not like they're doing this because they think it's going to benefit white people. They do it because they know it's going to destroy white people. And so I forgot what your the main. I feel like I'm drifting off the main part of your question.
No, you just used this term metaphysical reality a couple of times, so I wanted to know. Maybe you expounded on it in a video I didn't see, but I wanted to hear that. That's a loaded term, so it's kind of underneath the tip of the iceberg of using that term.
I just feel I'm just I really believe in the natural order. I really believe in Mother Nature. I really believe that everything is built for a purpose. I also like to tie God into things. I realized, especially last year, when I used to have really big problems with things like asthma and allergies, hypersensitivity to certain things. And I realized eventually, after years and years of the NHS and injections, things like that, that it was because I'd strayed so far from natural eating with what we see in the Western world today, starchy carbohydrates and sugars and all these E numbers, all this artificial, all this horrible stuff that's being brought in. And we've been told to stay away from fat, things like that, switch up to the keto diet and low fats in healthy fats. All of these problems I had previously went away. So then I started saying, oh, well, if the Bible tells you not to be gluttonous, not to be greedy, and then you have candida overgrowth if you are, these natural mechanisms work for a reason. And all scientists and science wants to do is define these. Well, congratulations, you found out, you named one of the processes. It's still going on. So the question to ask is, why are these processes going on? Why have they been hardwired? Why do marriages fail if both partners have had numerous partners, sexual partners before their marriage? Why does the marriage collapse? Why is it so common? I think it's something like it's something mental if you see the chart of how successful it is versus how unsuccessful it is with the different degrees. Why is it that if you're celibate and you don't do any sexually degenerative acts, why do you feel so much better? Why are you pumped full of testosterone? And I start to question, well, why is that happening? And it's just the laws of nature.
I want to say, you're talking to the guy that named his project The Great Order. Look,
yeah.
Go on, Jason.
Oh, well, first, I want to say that a moment ago, while Jared was talking about mothers and how they're saying, well, do I really want to go back to work after seeing what my child is learning at school? And I put this picture on the screen. This is a mother who was tearing anti-white pages out of her child's textbook. So that if you haven't done this yet, or you have, and you've seen something similar, make sure you tell your friends who are parents to have a look at their children's books. Well done there, Harry. Well done. Make sure you have you tell these parents so that they know that they have a similar issue with their children's books. It's going to be absolutely surfeited, just replete with this, laden with anti-whiteism. Make sure you tear those pages out. Don't let your children see that garbage. And it begins at the earliest ages, where they show, and I think it was Althea, and we salute her and all the work that she does on Twitter. Magnificent job. Where I think it was she had tweeted where there was a young, there was a drawings for children to see, our children to see, and there were these little white girls surrounded by non-white boys, and they were all being wonderful and happy. All the little non-white boys were just blessed. Little white boys in wheelchairs and otherwise crippled. And then she juxtaposed that anti-white brainwashing, that infection, that MP, with one of the many crimes that happens daily in the United States, across the West, where a white female had entrusted her safety to some people that maybe she shouldn't have. Because she had learned over the totality of her life that these are the good guys. These are the people, even if they look bad, they give every signal that they're dangerous. Really, I've watched so many Hallmark movies. They have a heart of gold. I know that they're just crying every time they get in their car, every time they're alone. Tears roll down their non-white faces from how evil the world is to them. So there's that. The other thing I wanted to say really quickly, and I'll toss it right back, and I want to get Harry's thoughts on anything that I say here as well, is that you're talking about it being natural to want to be with, or want to be around your own kind, wanting to be just merely being attracted to only your own people. If you want to know whether or not that's natural or not, just look at the entire rest of the natural world. You see, I'm an animal lover, and I feed birds. I have all of these different types of animals here. I can have at my bird feeder a handful of different types of finches, a handful of different types of sparrows. Side by side, they come, they get their food, they go. And who do they want to be with? They want to be with their own kind. They're all sparrows. They're all finches. They're only reproducing with it. So this is nature. This is natural. And what's worse is that we hold the moral high ground. It's only because of the anti-white narrative that people think otherwise. We hold the moral high ground. We have recessive genes. Anybody that would encourage us to reproduce with another race is committing genocide. Period. It is white erasure, ladies and gentlemen, biological white erasure. We are the ones who say, we are the ones who are moral because we say that we are trying to preserve who and what we are, and that includes who and what we are biology, primarily because if that doesn't exist, then everything we create doesn't exist. So every commercial, every TV ad, every movie, every book, every etc., every cartoon drawing that is encouraging white people to take non-white people as mates is encouraging biological white erasure. This is how we should talk about it. It is perfectly natural, and we are on the moral high ground to say that we don't want to be biologically white erased from existence. So I just wanted to say that and toss it back to Harry, and then we'll see what Jared has next.
For sure, it's so obvious what's going on in movies and music and culture and art. I say that in the UK, you have a lot of black overrepresentation in music. You've got grime and drill coming out. I think there was one point in February where you had 9 out of the 15 artists in the top 10 were black. So I think that's 60%. So it's a 20 times overrepresentation of black people. And if it was maybe 1 or 2% one week, I'd be like, oh, fair enough, just a bit of a coincidence. But when it's 20 times, that was when it was really hammering home that there's something going on here. And it's to make black people more attractive to young women, because that's what's hot in culture. It attracts them. And again, that constitutes genocide. Don't tell me, I said this a couple of times on stream, but don't tell me you could get some 6'8" super Chad, get him playing guitar, put a couple of steroids in him, put him in the industry, and then he'd be the top dog. But they don't do that. They promote white losers on the other end, people like Ed Sheeran, people who are obviously unattractive, people like Lewis Capaldi who just goes, oh, look what I'm eating tonight, and then they'll get some skit of him eating pizza, shoving his fat mouth. And this is what happens. They create a dichotomy of attractive non-white people and then unattractive white people, and then they go, oh, well, it's just a coincidence that people aren't breeding anymore. People aren't attracted to white people. Huh, mere coincidence. Oh, what? You got no white people in your country anymore? Huh, what a coincidence. Wasn't us.
Yeah, it's totally engineering the social signaling there, the hierarchies, and it's giving this false impression through mass media because that's reality to most people, as we've discussed. This wasn't on our discussion topic, but it's we kind of danced around this a bit. And I always like to ask this question, especially when it's the first time that we speak to someone. Jason and I have our different conceptions of this. I like to talk about kind of nested layers, Russian doll. You're talking about the natural order, so you might appreciate how there's layers of kinship, even from your relationship with yourself as an individual, figuring out the different parts of your personality to your family, to your community, to your region, to your ethnicity, to your race and civilization, and so on. How do you fit in your English identity, which obviously you're very proud of and you're advocating for, with a wider racial or civilizational sense? Do you see certain points of similarity amongst all the amazing differences we have, the real rich variety that we have amongst the various white peoples? And have you traveled to other Western countries around Europe or even to places like America or Australia?
For sure. Yeah, I think what it is familiarity. I do think that looking alike and having people that look like you creates a further high trust society, because it's the one indication. You see someone, you think, oh, they've probably had a similar background to me. They probably had a similar upbringing. They probably have similar interests. I'm probably going to be friends with that person. If we have a conversation, we're probably going to get along. And I look at cultures. I've been to Italy a couple of times. Beautiful country. Well, it's been eroded a bit now, but what Italy represents or has represented throughout history has been beauty. You've had the Renaissance. You've had poetry, art, culture, music. It all came through Europe. All the great ones, anyway, in my opinion, came through Europe. I just think that we do have, as Europeans, especially with England, I think we, particularly because of football hooliganism, I think we get a bit of a bad reputation from other European countries. But what our countries used to represent before the anti-whites really came into power and really started exercising their plans, there really was a shared kinship between all the different cultures. We may have had our slight differences and battles in culture, but overall, we all know that we want a united Europe. We all get on. We all share the same credos.
Yeah, there's plenty of examples in history that aren't mentioned. I wonder why, about how when the whole of Europe was being attacked or things were a little dicey, then all of Europe united. Parts of history with the Ottoman Empire. There's something I've mentioned in a video. The massacre at Chios was commemorated in a Delacroix painting. So speaking of great art from our French brothers and sisters too, but there was some kind of slaughter of Greeks on a Greek island. I guess Chios was the name of the island, right? And this was during the time of the conflicts with the Ottomans. And all of Europe responded to this in horror. So yes, of course, there's amazing differences and variety amongst all of us. But if there was no kinship and there were no common bonds or common roots, which the Ashalogos Subverted History series really does a good job of that, showing how our fair-featured kin kind of came up through, I know there's different theories of it, but came up through Greece and then into different parts of Europe. And it shows that we are really all a family. And it doesn't mean that Norwegians are the same as Italians now. No one would say that. That's ridiculous. There's a lot of marked differences between those two cultures, but we're all related. We're a family as well. And it's more than enough. There are more than enough parameters, whether you look at it spiritually, whether you and wax more poetic and romantic about it, or whether you look at it biologically, whatever tack you want to take, there's plenty of parameters that give it a meaningful boundary, that there's something here to all of this. So in the last part, I want to talk specifically about another big topic that you kind of put out there in your videos, that you volley out there. And that's this idea of, we've been talking about this a little bit, pleasure versus purpose. But more specifically, what we'd like to get into with you is this notion of how do we sell this to the vagues out there who, as we've been discussing today, are just hooked up in their Instagram world and their Netflix world. How do you sell purpose to people who only know shallow pleasures? Maybe there's a way to kind of make purpose seem pleasurable. That's one thing I was thinking about. But also something you discuss in your video that we all have to accept. It's something, again, Jason and I speak about, is that we have to let ultimately our people be free to make their choices, and that we are in a bit of a bottleneck right now, and not everyone's going to make it through. There are people making choices that are going to obliterate their legacy in the world, genetic, mimetic, and otherwise. And we understand, you have said this overtly in one of your videos, that there's going to be some people that just don't make it out of here. And maybe we'll be better off for that, because they're not choosing to be here. They're not choosing to go forward into the continued story of our history together.
Sure. I really feel that some people are lost, as you said. I feel that some people just unfortunately cannot be saved. I feel that in today's world of politics, it's not really a debate on truths and trying to justify your perspective with facts, or trying to outdo the other person with saying, oh, look, you're wrong here because X, Y, and Z. It's all from a different perspective, and you have to change that person's perspective. There's no other way to do it. And unfortunately, lots of people's perspectives are guarded by their ego. They can't fathom possibly that they're wrong, because they've grown up their whole life without any real obstacles or changes. They have that natural innate feeling that they're doing everything right, and so they can't possibly be wrong. But I feel that we just have to be like us three, people like us, people like Mark, and other people all across the world who are positive. We've got to really just be there for people. So then when something does go wrong in their life, so say someone breaks up with their girlfriend or something like that, and then they start to realize, oh, feminism isn't all that it seems, or perhaps they have a load of enrichers move into their area, they start getting enriched, and they start going, my community isn't as safe as it once used to be. And then they start thinking for themselves, their perspective instinctively changes, and then they watch one video, and then they go down the rabbit hole and they learn itself. But I think what we really have to focus on now, especially, is the building of a true collective to be there for people, and they can look at the strong. Because if you look at 20 wise individuals, or 100, or even 1,000 wise individuals, and you agree with them, they're going to be less instinctively wanting to go and get involved in them if they're just individuals. But if there's a collective of 100,000 people, they're going to be like, well, there's going to be no repercussions on me if I join them. So I think now's the time for building a collective. We all know that's what we want in the end goal. So we have to actively try and build it.
All right. And Jason, I think we have some questions from the chat, you were telling me.
We do indeed. And we will begin with the great Irish Ice, one of our young heroes, rocking the world with all of his activism for white well-being. And we have here $5 financial gift over on Entropy. Thank you so much, dear brother. And he writes, white people are supposed to pretend that we love multiracialism. And first off, I'm going to point out, well done saying multiracialism rather than multiculturalism. We don't have multiculturalism, we have multiracialism. And given their and we're supposed to celebrate giving our communities away to strangers from distant lands. Oh, it looks like Tall Kevin just deleted his question. Put it back, Kevin. I'm going to be asking it in just a moment. We're supposed to celebrate multiracialism, giving, so this is anti-whiteism, and giving away our countries to people from distant lands. We love no such thing. And I've been telling the unwelcome and ungrateful anti-white, non-white people this right to their faces. Well, thank you so much for your courage, brother. Let me ask you to do this, and that is to take that energy and time you would spend on that, and instead go to our brothers and sisters, vagues out there who don't know about going free. I know you're already doing that. So just take that little bit of time that you might give to a anti-white, non-white, or an anti-white white person, and put it to helping our brothers and sisters go through. But I appreciate your courage. Good on you for that. Harry, do you have any thoughts on when we're out there trying to spread the message of going free, trying to bring people over to the redemption, the love and redemption of going free, and how they can serve? In your interactions, what has been most successful for you? What kind of tacts have you taken that have brought your buddies around to going free?
For me, I really feel it was going to. I think that first of all, you have to know your audience. All right, if you're speaking to a load of college girls, Black Lives Matter rally or a gay pride rally, probably not going to be your best audience for trying to bring people over. You know, you're probably not going to resonate with many people there. But go to your friends. Like I have a couple of mates. They're not overtly political, but every now and then they'll send me something stupid. One of their college friends has sent them something about feminism. They'll just say, "Oh, this is stupid," blah blah blah. And then you say, "Oh yeah, it's stupid. Here's an iconoclast video on feminism." And then they go, "Oh, who's this guy?" And then they'll go down the rabbit hole, and then they can do it themselves. That tends to be where my successes come from. But also, I think recently the best thing I've been using, red pilled a couple of people, is the Epstein story. And maybe we won't get into this too much, but I already feel that there's some really weird stuff going on with a lot of these politicians. And I think people are interested in that because it's not overtly racially political. So people don't have any of those, those alarms going on in their head when they hear white or race or black or this or that. They're just seeing it in good and evil terms. And then you can say, well, this is what's going on. What are they promoting? And then they'll...
Yeah, so, right. You can take them right down the trail then. Yeah, that's a great point you're making. We should be, when it comes to the marketing of our message and bringing our vagues, or the vagues out there, brothers and sisters, into the white positive sphere and having them go down the path along with us, this journey to redemption, and really accessing those true talents that they have within inside of themselves that right now are muddied. Harry's talking about the triggering these things in them. Well, those things are mean pathogens, and that's what we don't want to necessarily trip over in a conversation. Certainly one that's right away when you're introducing somebody for the very first time, depending upon the person, because certain people you're going to be able to take a bigger step, others you're going to have to take baby steps. Let's see, we just had a question come in from Vokish Warrior, and it's just essentially he's asking, this is on entropy, if you've had any troubles with people misunderstanding the name of your show, and as far as thinking it pertains to something other than it does, and if so, have the troubles been big enough to cause you pause?
I think it's a good thing, you've got all these doxers trying to find you, or you've got anyone, they're trying to search my name and a load of trucks come up. It's a good thing for me. But I've had a couple of people giving me stick for my name, but I think it's here to stay now, unfortunately. Maybe when I was coming up with it, I just flew out my brain on the page.
No, is it TrUK or TrUK?
TrUK, yeah. Right. It just felt so badly. So, but it kind of makes sense.
No, that's perfect. In fact, we're at the point now, Mr. George and myself, where the anti-whites just shut us down like there's no, because we are selling a remedy, because we are pushing a remedy, because we are providing with our efforts free of charge, nothing but this is a constructive way to actually recapture our destiny, rather than just observations and etc. Because we have a medicine, a curative contagion, as we say it. They shut us down like you just would not believe. I mean, it's censorship for the white positive sphere in general, but the censorship that's pushed on Mr. George and myself is really unspeakably horrible. And as a consequence, I've wondered a couple times if it wouldn't be better to, just have like a fishing name to the show or something. We're just fishing buddies, and then maybe fly under the radar for a little while, but I don't know. But I want everybody, before we get to the next question from Mestizo, we want everybody to put their raucous emojis together. I mean, smash your raucous emojis face to face, bloody nosed, for Sean, who financially gifted $100. $100 from Sean today. Thank you, sir. This is truly a marvelous financial gift to the service of White Wellbeing. Thank you so much, brother. Didn't have to write anything, and he didn't write anything. It said everything he wanted to say with those 100 US dollar bills.
The flip side to all the censorship is we have one of the most amazing communities here.
Oh, this is the absolute advanced placement for the white positive sphere, without question. The people who are actually getting something done. I mean, it's like everywhere else in the white positive sphere, it is an observation that there's an empty lot, and then there is lumber and nails and shingles. We have actually started building the house. So that's a real difference from all of the observations. Whether the observations are superficial or very profound, very deep, those are still just observations. We're actually putting lumber together. And we have the Tall Kevin is back with his question over on the Tall Kevin question widget. And we'll get to Kevin first. The last person, let's see, what is he right here? The last person tried in the UK for treason was William Joyce. Do you think it's a sign of how far the UK has fallen since British citizens openly supporting harmful groups are welcomed with open arms? Harry. Great question.
Treason doesn't exist anymore. You had a kid the other day burning the British flag on the cenotaph. No arrest, nothing. Oh, just come on down. Maybe they were a bit rough with them. Oh, come on down. That's all right. You can burn the British flag. And I think this really is a testament to how weak the English collective has become as a whole. I wouldn't say it's come from weakness from a lot of the older generation. I'd say it's more, again, this links back to the Lotus flowers we were talking about before, is that because people, it's simply easier to just individualize yourself and to go and consume endlessly away in your home, because you can't even begin to confront the horrors that, one, is your own life, two, the struggle you're in, and three, how powerful our enemies are. And so you think that you're just so alone, so individualized. And once we have the strong collective, then we can start punishing people who are treasonous to what is a great culture and a great country.
Yeah.
Here.
Well said. And we have, let's see, great question. Yeah, what's punished now is heresy to anti-whiteism. We had, you're talking about burning the Union Jack on the cenotaph. We had of course, the Stars and Stripes burnt all over the country. Confederate flag has a completely different meaning to us in the South. Not even allowed to fly anymore. But they took the anti-whites took the Stars and Stripes United States flag, wrapped it around the face and head of the statue of George Washington, and set it alight on his face, and then pulled that statue over and set the whole statue on fire, and then urinated and defecated on it. That is where we are in the United States. And those people, a lot. And by the way, I haven't looked it up yet, but I am positive. I will bet. I wish I had money to bet. If I had money to bet, it would have many zeros after it, that there are a minimum 30 different laws that could be applied to anyone destroying statues, property, etc. in the United States. Guaranteed, but they're not being applied. And then finally, we have Trump come out.
May I just say one thing?
Yeah.
Just a quick white pill, because that's infuriating and very disturbing to hear, is two things. One, conversations I'm having, family, it's now easier to show that a lot of our law enforcement and certainly government is sympathetic to Antifa and things like that, and all these anti-white ideologies and we're occupied. That conversation is a lot easier to have now, and I've made more headway with that, and I hope you all are as well. Also, in my area, I am seeing more and more, at least to counter this, American flags going up. Of course, we have our Independence Day coming up next week, but particularly in America, there's one with it's kind of a grayed out American flag with one of the stripes is blue, represents the thin blue line, basically a way of supporting our law enforcement. So I'm seeing more of that. So again, these are trying dark times, but the light in that, as Jason said this in 2019 in our wrap-up streams, or when we were guests on other streams about the end of the year and next decade, next decade predictions, prognostications. The way, Jason, you put this, and I love this, and I've used this too, there's two storms gathering. There's a storm of light and a storm of dark. It's going to be a hectic, chaotic time, but if we keep our focus on the storm of light and we build our storm of light, as you say, metaphorically, then we'll be all right. There's a lot of good happening amidst all of this chaos.
There is indeed. Very well said. And we'll get Harry's thought on that, actually, after I read this from Mestizo, which is, good morning, Tab. Good morning, Harry. Congrats on the 20,000 subs. I assume I just reached 20,000 subs, so thank you very much for that. I remember being first introduced to your channel when a young woman was targeted by anti-white pseudo-intellectuals. Oh, wow. Okay, that was a while back. I'm going to bring that video back. It was my acmatic video, and it still would be the case. I mean, it was like 60-some thousand views. Never went anywhere close to that again. So I'll bring that back. But that's interesting, and I will address that to Harry. And we just had a financial gift come in from Tall Kevin, and we'll get to that right after we hear from Harry on this. But Harry, what do you think about, and this goes to using this other instances, events in news, and introducing our brothers and sisters to going free by way of some of these other things going on in the news that won't necessarily immediately trigger a MP inside of them. What do you think about using the natural inclination of men to defend women, at least where it's present, because as we know, it's shamefully no longer present, as widely present as it used to be. But this desire to protect, for men to protect our women and children, for women to protect our children. What do you think about using that instinct to reach our brothers and sisters out there with the message of going free?
For sure. I think that tradition as a whole is widely ignored by particularly the youth today. And again, like things like protecting women, they're told now, even things like flirting with women, men are too afraid to do that now because people might think that might be sexual harassment. I think they've really, the dogma that the globalists, the Marxists are using has really infringed upon natural order, the way things are supposed to be, men wanting to protect women, even stupid things like men holding the door open for women. That's seen as a sexist thing to do. So, I mean, obviously these are all points we've all gone over, but I really feel that with current events, it is really great for highlighting and furthering our cause. I agree with Jared that this event, when it first started happening, it was a massive black pill because I was saying to people I was being overt, this is crazy, look what's going on, and people weren't really believing me. But now I'm just so white-pilled. I've had so many friends reach out to me, say, oh, you were right, you were talking about this, but you were right. I've had mates who, my old housemates, who tell me to shut up when I was talking about politics, messaging me with an Enoch Powell speech saying this guy was so right, this guy was right. And again, never get in the way of never get in the way of your enemy when they're making a mistake, and they've made a massive mistake. Lots of the mass red pilling, the mass awakening in 2016 happened a lot. I think was it the Baltimore riots? I think there was a big Black Lives Matter campaign around that time. So I think a lot of people really saw what was going on.
You know, Jason, as a quick thing about portending what was about to happen, I remember the very first time you and I spoke, the stream that eventually gave birth to this show, the After Party. You were talking to me about this Morality of Nationalism series I just completed. This was going back in February of 2018. And I said to you, I'd use this example because I love the painting. I'd seen it in person, was very moved by it. Harry, of course, it's a bit of our American history. It's Washington crossing the Delaware. And I said to you, Jason, it could have used many examples, but this is just one that popped into my head and that I used in the videos, is that, and because I'd use this with someone and it kind of helped them see things, is what does it mean to be a people? Well, if you have enough people in a country, but that country's not a nation, it's not a people, they're not related, they're not going to look at the founding images and symbols, and even to some degree we can call it mythology because a mythos builds around these things. And I said, they can't look at a painting like Washington crossing the Delaware and say, that's me, that's us. that key word being us, or at least if they were European stock that came later on in different waves of migrations, they still see someone that looks like them, they could relate to, that could be them. As we were saying earlier in the show, there is a wider European family. And I'm sitting here and it strikes me as you're telling this story about burning and defecating and urinating on the Washington statue. This is literally one of the first things I said to you. That particular example. Again, it could have been one of many, but you mentioned the Washington statue and it just triggered that memory. So another way, all these ways, big and small, that what we've been saying is now playing out in front of our eyes. These people don't look at George Washington, the statues, the paintings of him, and say, that's us, we're continuing something. There's no ownership, there's no identity, there's no meaning, there's nothing that moves their bones. In fact, it's moving them in the other direction, a direction of resentment and hate. And we see that playing out right before our very eyes.
Very well said. Yeah, it was a pellucid comment that you had made back then about the fact that when you have folks with the biospirit of the West inside of them, our biospirit, it doesn't matter when they get here, they can still see that a group of people that is like, if I were to go to live in the UK for the rest of my life, or if I were to go to live in Germany for the rest of my life, I would be able to identify with those historic and great events in that particular country's history.
We already do.
We already do. We're precise. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, these other folks, they can't see it. They don't see themselves there. And these white anti-whites who absolutely hate Western kind of Western civilization, they are identified as haters of all things white and Western. So it absolutely makes perfect sense to them to destroy and even bring it to the point of this urinating and defecating. It was a very pellucid comment that you made back then, and indeed we're seeing it come to fruition with the anti-whites carrying out these attacks. We have Angharad Celtic saying, the show for Harry's name is fine. Screw everybody who doesn't like it. Thank you so much, Angharad Celtic.
I like it, and Harry, I figured it was TrUK when I saw it. I got it.
Thank you.
Well done. And we have a financial gift from Tall Kevin. And as we are coming near the end of the show here, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any more questions or comments or financial gifts, please do so now. We are getting closer to tapping out. And Tall Kevin is lightening things up for us here at the end with a $3 financial gift, asking if Harry could do his best Austin Powers impersonation. Have you done Austin Powers before?
I know who he is. Is he the bald guy with oh no, I know what he looks like from some Nate Diaz video where he's after he beat Köhne, he was doing some like Hollywood promo or something like that, and he called some guy Austin Powers. Is he like long blonde hairish?
Jared?
Kind of light brown. Yeah, it was like the Mike Myers movie where he played. It's kind of a spoof on old 60s spy movies.
Yeah.
So even when I was young, I never watched movies. I never liked them. I just thought it was so boring. I liked Spider-Man when I was younger, but the original Tobey Maguire ones. But I didn't like anything else.
Can you do any other impersonations?
not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, I can't be doing any impressions.
Well, we do have Angharad Celtic just financially gifted $30. Thank you, my dear lady. She is a magnificent member of this community in service to White Wellbeing, and we love her deeply. $30 US, writing, "This is all I can afford to send today. I've had a few huge vet bills. Well, I hope your pets are okay." And she writes, "Please keep up the superb work for White Wellbeing, for the White Wellbeing community." Well, we absolutely will, and we're going to make sure that Harry does the same. As you heard today as he was speaking, he used quite a bit of the lexicon and dialectics of going free, which is why he can think so clearly, and he's not having problems understanding the world. But folks, you will notice this. I don't know. I don't know how you could not notice it. Maybe you purblind if you fail to notice this. While Harry is a handsome young man, he is not a beautiful young woman. And so we want you to go over to his channel and sub right now, because if you don't, He's not going to get those subs by shaking X, Y, or Z on the camera or low cut top. You know, he's not going to be able to get subs that way. So he's not a dilettante. He's in for the long haul, and we want you to head on over. His link should be in the description right now. You should be able to go right down, find the YouTube channel, and head over real quick. Make sure you sub, and then tell your friends to sub so we can get Harry as much attention as we possibly can. Mr. George, did you have anything, or Harry, did you have any response to that not being a beautiful young woman?
With just the Lauren Southern coming back, I know she's come back. She's come back to save us all. I'm sure she's going to do a great job. Definitely sure she's going to save us all. What a great act of humility that was from her. But just one more point from the conversation previously was about when you have someone come in and they're like, "Oh, this room has great diversity." What great diversity this room has! There's 20% Asian, 20% Black, 20% Muslim, 20% white, and then 20% whatever. But what you find is all these people, yeah, maybe ethnically diverse, but in the room, they're all sitting in their own groups. It's 20% by themselves. All the Black kids sit with all the Black kids at uni. All the Muslim kids stay with all the Muslim kids. For the most part, most of the white kids. But then they'll listen and they'll say, look how diverse we are. But yet you find that nature plays its course.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, essentially, it's that those different 20% are actually 100%. They're 100% in their own little group. And meanwhile, we are slowly being white erased, devoured alive in the civilizations that we built. And of course, we are seeing exactly as is predicted, has been predicted, that as we diminish in strength, as we diminish in pride, as we diminish in power, as we diminish in numbers, Western civilization looks less and less like Western civilization. And eventually you see in places like South Africa, where you are getting closer and closer to the end of Western civilization. Hold on, I got my phone is starting on its own. We see that indeed these countries end up not looking like us at all. And then the anti-whites who move in to operate the show, implement increasingly vindictive and vindictive for lies, for nothing but falsehoods, these ideas that we're guilty for X, Y, or Z in the past, and then end up white erasing us from section after section until there isn't a place left. And what do you have in Seattle right now with the autonomous, this anti-white autonomous zone? We see that white people are considered third-class citizens there. They're not allowed to eat first. They have to pay, they have to give their money away to non-whites if they ask for it. That is the kind of world that they will create across the country, all of our countries, if we do not recapture our destiny. Which
imagine volunteering for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
On the one hand, it's easy to laugh and smile, but as we say on a more serious note, they are still our people who are just extremely sick. They're sick. They have a disease in their head, in their mind, in their spirit.
Yeah, precisely. That's the white noir, and that it comes through them, makes them embrace the inverse of the spirit of the West that's inside of them, our biospirit. Let's get, I think we are clear on everything we have here financially gift-wise. We do have guilt-free in the chat asking about Patreon giving money to BLM. I don't know, but we will, since we said the letters BLM, I will say we totally support them. They're wonderful people. And I hope everybody at YouTube is listening right now about how much we just absolutely love BLM and CNN and MSNBC and Ms. Jawiski, everything that she wants to do. We are wholehearted supporters of that. Harry, any final thoughts? And please let folks know where they can find you and the fine work that you are doing.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's been a great stream. Been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jared. It's been great. And yeah, you can find me on YouTube, the TrUK Show, just how it's spelled down there. I put out videos trying to get it to like every 2 weeks now, but it takes a while to edit them. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on.
Brilliant. Mr. George.
We have to think of some of our own acronyms or what BLM could stand for. I don't know if they'll allow that or not.
Maybe
I said something with birds for the B, because I know you're such a bird lover, Jason. I like birds too, but you probably know the varieties better than I do, spotting them and all that. But anyway, Harry, it was great to speak to you finally, and I hope we will be able to do so very soon again, that it's just the first of many. You're doing great work, and it was a pleasure and honor to speak to you as well. Everyone, of course, on our respective websites and on the shared website for Jason and I for the media we do, the afterparty.tv. Of course, when the post is up for this show, all of Harry's links will be there. And if there's just subjects and themes in this show that interest you, always check out the tags. You can click on a tag and it'll take you to other shows that are marked with that tag. Try to be very well cataloged, good Westmen, be very well organized. This whole treasure trove is a library. As I was saying a few minutes ago, we've been doing this since early 2018. We celebrated the 2-year anniversary back in February. So there's this whole catalog of material that you could go through that is on the afterparty.tv. And of course, community generated as well. A lot going on there. There's the Chuck Martell Garage Party on Friday nights that Jason started, a music and arts listening party. Those and other community generated projects are also included on the TAP TV site as well. My own site, of course, is thegreatorder.com. That's where my contact is. If you want to contact me, support, and everything I do, videos and otherwise. You know that I'm very passionate about the cultural end of things. There's a new Red Ice video in the works. Big thing for me is working on music. This is, it's not new for me in my life, but it's new for me as the Great Order in this capacity. No one's heard music I've done. And now I'm going to be putting out some music for this whole thing. And I look very much forward to sharing that with you all soon. We'll talk more about that when the time comes. But just a little teaser for now. Jason, take us out, and we'll see you all soon. I think we're going to have, if schedule remains, John Q. Publius working his butt off already, has his second book out. I feel like we just talked to him about his first book.
Yeah.
He is taking advantage of the quarantine, man, just pushing the pedal to the metal. He has another book out. Harry, you'd like this if you're not aware. It's a big scope, big picture view of the anti-white neoliberal world order, how it has proliferated over the last few centuries, and how it is a dying star right now, trying to destroy everything in its path as it's failing. He does this monstrous analysis of that, and we really look forward to talking to him about that. So it's looking like, unless something changes, he will be our guest discussing that book next week. We're looking at Thursday, right before the long Independence Day holiday for July 4th here in the States.
That's fantastic. Really looking forward to that show. And we hope everybody will be able to join us. And we're absolutely going to have Harry back in the very near future, because we are going to make sure that these talented content producers get all of the attention that they deserve here on YouTube and anywhere else that we can promote the great work that they are doing. And I want to shine a spotlight on a couple people I saw in the live chat today. I saw Rill was with us. I also saw Bob Matthews was with us. Susie Penguin, C. Cooper, Jace Landry, and the Reaver were all here today. A big spotlight on all of you, and good to see you all in the live chat. I want to thank everybody who financially gifted here during TAP. We deeply appreciate all that you do for us and helping us to pay the bills, things like the cost of the different platforms and the like. We thank you for that. Thank everybody who commented and participated and who shared the URL. We asked you to do so at the beginning, and a bunch of you did. So I really deeply thank you all for that. This is a great community that we are growing. And remember, we are the best of the best, the creme de la creme of the white positive sphere, because we are actually doing something. We are actually changing lives. We just had one of the testimonies today over the course of the night was that we saved one of our community members some money. And so this is another way in which we are helping people to change their lives, change this community, change our people, so that we can indeed make a people out of the deracinated race and be the ones who pass through the eye of the needle as the storm approaches. I thank you all for being with us here today, and we look forward to seeing you all next time.